go ahead and try this SAT reading question. It can be inferred that the part of the mountain, line 4, this portion right here, that the narrator originally intended to spend his time on was that of what? So we have an inference question. Now, one of the big questions I get a lot is, how do I do better on the inference questions? I can't read between the lines. I'm having trouble understanding what the author is really saying, etc., etc. And my advice always in that case is to actually back off a little bit on the inference part of it. So sure, they say what can be inferred, but most of the time, the answer is, if not a paraphrase of the passage, so not really much of an inference at all, it would be, if not just a paraphrase, it'll be just one logical step beyond what's in the text. You can't go too far and wide. A lot of students, when they see the word infer or they see the word imply or suggests, they think that the answer is going to be some wild, crazy inference based on all these assumptions and what's like the secret hidden part of the passage. It's really not. Almost never is it, right? It's going to be based, as every reading question is, on what's on the page, what's in the text. And let's look at this example. So what is going on with this part of the mountain? Let's read this part of the text. I remember myself as a young man, stubbled, slouched, eager above all to be perceived as different, in the crowd but not of it, a young writer not about to waste his time on the lower part of the mountain. But I am now that thing I so confidently scorned then, a book reviewer. When people ask me what I do, I usually say I'm an essayist or a critic. More honorable terms both, and they mostly fit. They almost conceal the fact that the greater part of what I do is read and write about books. So what can we infer about this part of the mountain? Sometimes it's hard to come up with your own answer to inference or imply or suggest questions, but you can at least try to get some idea. And what I would say here is he wants to be in the crowd, not of it. He doesn't want to waste his time on the lower part of the mountain. He wants to be perceived as different, right? So he doesn't want to be part of the typical crowd, the typical writing crowd, right? This is all about his career as a writer, or her career as a writer. Oh, no, sorry, to him. His career as a writer, right? It's about how he considers the kind of writing he'll do, how he fits in with other writers or with people in general, and he wants to be different. He doesn't want to be part of the lower part of the mountain. So let's go to the choices. And one thing to think about, to kind of continue the metaphor, if he doesn't want to be part of on the lower part of the mountain, so here's a really terrible mountain, and so he doesn't want to be on this part of the mountain. He wants to be then where? Probably at the top of the mountain, right? That's where the inference comes in a little bit. He doesn't want to be on the lower part. He wants to be on the upper part. He wants to be different, above, exalted, whatever. So it can be inferred that the part of the mountain that the narrator originally intended to spend his time on was that of a dogged pursuit of celebrity. Do they mention specifically anywhere here that the author said he wanted to be a celebrity or famous? No, all we know is he wants to be different. He doesn't want to waste his time on the lower part of the mountain with the crowd. He wants to be kind of apart from the crowd. So even though you might think, oh, he wants to be different from other people, so therefore he wants to be famous, he wants to be a celebrity, that's reasoning one step too far out of what the passage actually supports. Wants to spend time on a encyclopedic accumulation of knowledge. Again, where does it say anything about gaining knowledge or accumulating knowledge in any way? So we can get rid of B for the same reasons that we got rid of A. How about C, rarefied literary endeavor? So you may have had problems with this word, but for now focus on literary, right? This whole passage is about how he's a writer and he doesn't want to be just a simple book reviewer. He really wanted to be something different than that, different from that, but he turned out that's kind of where he went. So this passage is about a literary endeavor, but we'll come back to this one since we may not be sure what rarefied means. Abstract philosophical discourse. So you might think, okay, he wants to be on top of the mountain. That's kind of like above everything. So maybe he wants to think broadly about issues and maybe muse abstractly on philosophical principles, maybe. So maybe D is what's going on. Maybe that's what he really wants. But again, that's another example of reasoning too far. Do they say anything here about his doing philosophy or thinking about philosophical discourses or thinking abstractly? No. It's about being a writer and how he positions himself as a writer. E, revolutionary political ideas. I mean, this one is the worst of the 5 choices because it says nothing about revolution. It says nothing about politics at all. So we get rid of it. So rarefied, what does that mean? So the word rarefied means, one meaning of it, well, I'll do this meaning first. The meaning of rarefied in this case is basically high, lofty, exalted, above the ordinary, right? So not part of the ordinary things, above that ordinary aspect of things. And that's exactly what's going on here, right? He wants to be out of the ordinary. He wants to be above the ordinary, above the fray, better than, in some sense, the typical set of writers, or, in the crowd, but not of it. He doesn't want to be on the lower part of the mountain. He wants to be on the upper part of the mountain. He wants to be above the crowd, above the ordinary. So that makes sense. Also, rarefied. You might have heard rarefied air. So rarefied air, literally, when you're at the top of a mountain, rarefied air is thin air, right? When you're at the top of a mountain, air is thin, there's not much oxygen, the pressure is low. So rarefied air is that air at the top of a mountain. So the metaphor kind of goes deeper than simply wanting to be above things or part of things. It's rarefied in the sense that you are above the ordinary, you're out of the ordinary, in this case, atmosphere, or in the figurative mode here, you are out of the ordinary group or crowd of writers, the people who do that ordinary writing of book reviews and reading and writing about books. He wanted to be different and above that. So that's where rarefied comes in. That's where the image of the metaphor, or the image of the mountain, comes in. The metaphor of the mountain comes in. And of course, it's about his literary endeavor. It's about writing. And that, most of all, fits with the passage. To learn more about Reason Prep's SAT, SAT subject test, and ACT video courses, go to reasonprep.com/enroll. And you can find the link in the description below the video.